Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the alien fleet gather at the edge of space near Earth. The Zephyrian ships were huge and looked like they were alive. Their metal hulls seemed to breathe and pulse with strange lights. Jake had never seen so many alien ships in one place before. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Lisa Carter walked up to Jake and handed him a data pad. She was the ambassador for Earth, and her face looked worried. The message on the pad was from the Zephyrian leader. It was not good news. The aliens wanted Earth to surrender everything. They wanted all human technology, all the resources from human worlds, and they wanted Earth to destroy its space fleet. They think we are weak, Lisa said. She pointed at the alien ships on the screen. They have been watching us for years. They only see our patrol ships and mining vessels. They think that is all we have. Jake nodded. He knew the truth was very different. For 300 years, humans had been very careful about what they showed to aliens. When humans first met other species in space, they learned quickly that being too strong was dangerous. Strong species were seen as threats. Weak species were left alone or made into slaves. So humans chose to look weak. They hid their real ships and showed only small, peaceful vessels to the galaxy. Trade ships, research vessels, and small patrol craft. Nothing that would scare anyone. Nothing that would make other species think humans were dangerous. Admiral Pete Sullivan was in his office on Earth when the message came. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been waiting for this day for 30 years. The message was short and simple. Operation Heritage is authorized. Wake the old girls up. Pete smiled for the first time in months. He opened a secure channel to bases all over the solar system. The message he sent was even shorter. Begin awakening procedures. All Heritage units are now active. In space stations hidden behind moons and asteroids, people began to work. They had been waiting for this order their whole lives. Some of them had parents and grandparents who worked on these same ships. The ships that were about to wake up had been sleeping for a very long time. The Zephyrian High Commander Veltar broadcast his message to all human frequencies. His voice was cold and harsh. People of Earth, he said, you have 48 hours to surrender. Give us your technology. Give us your resources. Destroy your weapons. If you do not obey, we will destroy your worlds and take everything anyway. Veltar turned off the broadcast and looked at his officers. These humans are nothing, he said. We have fought wars for 1,000 years. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. These mammals with their tiny ships think they can resist us. His second-in-command nodded. Our sensors show they have less than 300 ships in their entire fleet. Most of them are cargo vessels and miners. They have no real warships. Exactly, Veltar said. This will be over quickly. But deep in the moon, something was changing. Sarah Blake stood in a control room that most humans did not know existed. The room was built inside the moon itself, carved out of rock and hidden from all sensors. In front of her was a massive window that looked out into a huge space filled with ships. These were not the small patrol craft that aliens had seen. These were warships. Real warships. Ships built when humans fought each other across the stars. Ships designed to kill other ships and crack open planets. Ships that had been sleeping for centuries, waiting for the day they might be needed again. Sarah pressed a button and spoke into her microphone. Heritage Fleet Command to all vessels. Begin startup procedures. Today we wake the sleeping giants. Lights began to flicker on in the darkness. Massive ships that had been cold and dead for hundreds of years started to come alive. Their engines began to warm up. Their weapon systems ran diagnostic checks. Their crews, who had been training in secret their whole lives, took their positions. The UES Leviathan was the first ship to fully awaken. She was 2 kilometers long and built like a flying fortress. Her hull was thick armor that could stop almost anything. Her weapons could destroy other ships from thousands of kilometers away. When her main engines fired up, the entire moon shook. Ryan Hayes was the captain of the Leviathan. He had dreamed of this day since he was a boy. His grandfather had commanded this same ship during the colony wars 200 years ago. Now it was his turn to take her into battle. All stations report ready, his first officer said. Good, Ryan replied. Take us out. The Leviathan moved slowly at first, like a giant animal waking from a long sleep. But as her engines reached full power, she moved faster and faster. Behind her, dozens of other ships followed. Ships that had names like Thunderbolt and Devastator and Ragnarok. Ships that had fought in wars that most humans had forgotten. All over the solar system, the same thing was happening. Hidden bases were opening. Disguised space stations were revealing their true purpose. What aliens thought were mining platforms were actually weapons platforms. What looked like research stations were actually military bases. Jake Morrison watched his sensors as the Heritage fleet began to appear. Ship after ship showed up on his screens. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Each one was bigger and more powerful than anything the galaxy had seen from humans before. "My God," Lisa Carter whispered. "How many ships do we really have?" "More than enough," Jake said. He opened a channel to Admiral Sullivan on Earth. "Admiral, the Heritage fleet is awakening. Estimated time to full deployment is 18 hours. "Understood," Pete replied. "Let the aliens see what they want to see. Let them think we are desperate. When they attack, they will learn the truth about humanity." The Zephyrians noticed the energy readings but dismissed them. Veltar looked at the reports and laughed. "The humans are powering up their industrial facilities," he said. "They think they can build new ships in 2 days. How pathetic." But the energy readings kept growing, and deep in space, humanity's real fleet continued to wake up from its long sleep, preparing to remind the galaxy why humans had survived every war they had ever fought. Maria Santos stood in the Heritage Project Control Center deep beneath the surface of Mars. Around her, screens showed ships awakening all across the solar system. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. As the chief scientist of the Heritage Project, she knew more about humanity's hidden fleet than almost anyone alive. "Dr. Santos," her assistant called out, "the Devastator is reporting full power in 30 minutes. Maria nodded. The Devastator was one of their largest ships. It was so big that it had its own gravity field. For 50 years it had been hiding behind Jupiter, pretending to be a research station. Any aliens who scanned it saw only scientific equipment and living quarters. They never saw the massive weapons hidden inside its hull. The deception had been perfect. When humans first met alien civilizations 300 years ago, they learned quickly that the galaxy was a dangerous place. Strong species conquered weak ones. Advanced species enslaved primitive ones. The only way to survive was to appear harmless. So humanity made a choice. They would hide their true strength and show only peaceful ships to the galaxy. They built fake cargo vessels with hidden weapons. They disguised military bases as mining operations. They made their most powerful warships look like space junk or research stations. The plan worked perfectly. For 3 centuries, aliens saw humans as weak but useful, good for trade and technology exchange, but not dangerous enough to worry about. The galaxy's major powers ignored Earth and focused on fighting each other instead. Ryan Hayes brought the Leviathan online and felt the ship respond to his commands. Every system was working perfectly even after centuries of sleep. That was the beauty of human engineering. These ships were built to last. They were built during the colony wars when human survival depended on having the best technology possible. The colony wars had been humanity's darkest time. Humans fought humans across dozens of star systems. Brother fought brother over resources and territory. The war lasted 50 years and nearly destroyed the human race. But it also forced humans to become the best warriors in the galaxy. Every ship in the Heritage fleet was a veteran of those wars. They were designed by people who knew that losing meant death. Every weapon system was tested in real combat. Every armor plate was proven against enemy fire. These ships had been built by a species that was fighting for its very existence. Danny Wright commanded the battlecruiser Thunderbolt from his position in the asteroid belt. His ship had been disguised as a mining platform for decades. Any alien patrol that scanned it saw ore processors and cargo holds. They never suspected that those cargo holds contained enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Captain," his weapons officer reported, "all gun batteries are online. Missile tubes are loaded and ready." "Good," Danny replied. "How long since we last fired these weapons in anger?" 237 years, sir," Danny smiled. "Well, they are about to remember what they were built for." All across the solar system, similar conversations were happening. Captains who had trained their entire lives for this moment were taking command of ships that their ancestors had built. Engineers who had maintained these vessels in secret were bringing ancient systems back to life. Kim Foster was the admiral in charge of the Outer System Defense Fleet. Her flagship was a massive carrier called the Enterprise. It carried 300 fighter craft, each one a work of art designed for ship-to-ship combat. The fighters had been in storage for so long that some of their pilots were the great-grandchildren of the men and women who first flew them. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, We are receiving activation codes from Earth Command. Confirmed, Kim replied.
Launch all fighters.
It is time to let the galaxy see what human fighter pilots can really do. The Enterprise opened its massive hangar bays and began launching fighters. Wave after wave of small, fast ships poured out into space. Each fighter was equipped with weapons that could penetrate alien armor and shields. They moved like angry hornets, fast and deadly. Steve Miller piloted one of those fighters and felt the familiar weight of acceleration as his ship left the carrier. He had been training for this moment his whole life, practicing combat maneuvers that his grandfather had used in the colony wars. The fighter responded to his touch like it was part of his own body. All fighters. This is flight control, came the voice in his headset. Remember your training. These alien ships have never faced human fighter tactics. Show them what we learned in the colony wars. The Zephyrians began to notice that something was wrong. Their sensors were picking up massive energy readings throughout the Sol system. Ships that had seemed dead were suddenly showing signs of life. Structures that looked like mining equipment were revealing weapon signatures. Commander Veltar stared at his tactical display with growing concern. What are those energy readings? He demanded. Unknown, sir, his sensor operator replied. The signatures are unlike anything in our database. Some of them are coming from objects we classified as space debris. Space debris does not generate that much power, Veltar said. Send a scout ship to investigate. The scout ship approached what its sensors had identified as an abandoned mining station. As it got closer, the pilot realized his mistake. The station was not abandoned. It was a weapons platform and it was very much alive. Massive gun turrets swiveled to track the scout ship. Missile launchers opened their covers. The pilot sent a desperate message back to the fleet. This is not a mining station. Repeat, this is a military installation. Request immediate withdrawal. But it was too late. Similar reports were coming in from scout ships all over the solar system. What the Zephyrians had thought was a weak human presence was revealing itself to be something much more dangerous. Grace Patterson commanded the dreadnought, sovereign from her position near Earth. Her ship was the command vessel for the entire Heritage fleet. From her bridge, she could coordinate the movements of thousands of warships. She watched as the tactical display filled with green dots representing human ships. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, all Heritage units are now online. Total count is 3,247 combat vessels. Grace smiled. The Zephyrians had brought 1,000 ships to threaten Earth. They thought that was more than enough to defeat humanity. They had no idea that humans had been preparing for this day for 3 centuries. They had no idea that what they were seeing was just the beginning. The Heritage fleet was humanity's insurance policy, ships built during their most desperate hour, hidden away for the day when peaceful diplomacy would not be enough. Today was that day. The transformation was like watching a magic trick happen in slow motion. All across the solar system, things that had looked harmless for decades were revealing their true nature. Mining platforms extended massive gun barrels. Research stations opened missile bays. Cargo ships dropped their fake hulls to show the warships hidden underneath. Bob Turner watched from the bridge of his destroyer squadron as they prepared to leave their hiding place in the asteroid belt. His 6 ships had been disguised as ore processing facilities for 30 years. Every day they had pretended to mine asteroids and refine metals. But underneath their fake exterior shells, they were some of the deadliest ships ever built by human hands. All ships report ready for combat operations, his communications officer announced. Good, Bob replied. Drop the camouflage. Let them see what we really are. The fake processing equipment fell away from his ships like old skin. Underneath were sleek, deadly vessels designed for one purpose, killing enemy ships. Their hulls were black as space itself, and covered with sensors that could track targets from millions of kilometers away. Their weapons were hidden behind armored plates that now opened to reveal gun barrels and missile tubes. Tony Garcia commanded a heavy cruiser that had been pretending to be a space station orbiting Saturn. For 40 years, alien ships had docked at his station to trade and refuel. They had walked through his corridors and eaten in his restaurants. None of them had suspected that they were actually inside a warship that could destroy their entire fleet. Captain, his engineering officer reported, main engines are online. All weapon systems are operational. We are ready to move. Tony nodded. Take us away from Saturn. It is time to join the fleet. The station began to move, slowly at first, then faster as its massive engines reached full power. The aliens who had visited it would never recognize it now. Gone were the docking bays and commercial areas. In their place were gun turrets and armor plating. The peaceful space station had become a ship of war. Admiral Kim Foster coordinated the largest fleet movement in human history from her command ship. On her tactical display, thousands of green dots were moving toward predetermined positions. Each dot represented a warship that the galaxy had never seen before. Ships that had been built during humanity's most violent period and then hidden away for centuries. The UES Devastator was the largest ship in the fleet. It was 3 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide. Its mass was so great that smaller ships could actually orbit around it. For 50 years it had hidden behind Jupiter, using the planet's gravity and radiation to mask its true nature. Now it was moving toward Earth, and its presence was like a moving mountain. Devastator to Fleet Command, came the transmission. We are clear of Jupiter's gravity well. Estimated arrival at Earth in 6 hours. Kim smiled. The Devastator alone carried more firepower than most alien fleets. Its main guns could crack the crust of a planet. Its armor was so thick that enemy weapons would barely scratch it. When the Zephyrians saw it coming, they would understand their mistake. The alien scouts were reporting back to their fleet with increasing panic. Every hour brought new discoveries of human ships that should not exist. Warships hiding in asteroid fields, battle stations disguised as research facilities, entire fleets concealed behind moons and planets. Commander Veltar studied the reports with growing alarm. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded. "We have confirmed over 2,000 combat vessels, sir," his intelligence officer replied. "And more are appearing every hour." "That is impossible," Veltar said. "Our intelligence reports showed they had less than 300 ships total." "Sir, I think our intelligence was wrong." "Very wrong." Veltar stared at the tactical display. Red dots representing human ships were appearing all over the solar system. Each one was larger and more heavily armed than anything they had expected humans to possess. His 1,000-ship fleet was starting to look very small. Sarah Blake supervised the launch of the moon-based fleet from her command center. The moon was hollow, she realized. Not naturally hollow, but carved out by human engineers over the course of 2 centuries. Inside that hollow space was the largest shipyard in human space, completely hidden from outside observation. "Launch Bay 7 reports ready," her assistant announced. "Clear them for departure," Sarah replied. The moon's surface opened like a flower blooming. Hidden doors that had never been detected by alien sensors slid back to reveal massive ships emerging from underground hangars. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, built with technology that the galaxy had never seen. The Heritage Fleet represented more than just old warships. It represented humanity's philosophy of war. During the colony wars, humans had learned that survival meant being prepared for anything. Every ship was designed to fight outnumbered and win. Every weapon system was built to kill enemies quickly and efficiently. Ryan Hayes brought the Leviathan to its assigned position near Earth and marveled at the sight around him. Hundreds of ships that had been sleeping for centuries were now awake and ready for battle. Destroyers and cruisers and battleships and carriers all arranged in perfect formation. It was the most beautiful and terrifying sight he had ever seen. "Captain," his tactical officer reported, "we are receiving movement orders from Fleet Command." "Display them," Ryan ordered. The battle plan appeared on his screen. It was elegant in its simplicity. The Heritage Fleet would not hide or run or try to negotiate. They would advance directly toward the Zephyrian fleet and destroy it completely. It was the human way of war, direct, brutal, and effective. Steve Miller launched his fighter from the Enterprise and joined the massive formation of small craft surrounding the capital ships. There were thousands of fighters in space now, each one piloted by someone who had trained their entire life for this moment. The fighters moved like schools of fish, darting and weaving around the larger ships. "All fighters, this is Fleet Command," came the transmission. "You are cleared to engage enemy scouts. Show them what human pilots can do." Steve grinned and pushed his throttle forward. His fighter leaped ahead like a hunting hawk. In front of him, a Zephyrian scout ship was trying to retreat back to its fleet. It would not make it. The Zephyrian pilot never saw the human fighter coming. Steve's weapons fired once. A brief flash of energy that cut through the alien ship's hull like paper. The scout ship exploded in a ball of fire and debris. "Target destroyed," Steve reported, moving to engage next contact. All across the outer solar system, similar engagements were taking place. Human fighters were hunting down alien scouts and destroying them one by one. The Zephyrians were learning that human pilots were faster, smarter, and more aggressive than anything they had faced before. Danny Wright brought his battlecruiser into formation with the main battle line. Around him, ships that had names like Ragnarok and Nemesis and Destroyer were taking their positions. These were ships built for one purpose: winning wars. They had proven themselves in the colony wars, and now they would prove themselves again. All ships, this is Admiral Patterson, came the transmission from the fleet flagship. We advance in 1 hour. The enemy has 36 hours left in their ultimatum. We will not wait for them to attack us. We will attack them first. The Heritage fleet began to move toward the edge of the solar system where the Zephyrian fleet waited. 3,000 human warships advancing in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. It was the most powerful military force that humanity had ever assembled, and the galaxy was about to see it in action for the first time in 300 years. High Commander Veltar made the decision that would doom his fleet. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by officers who had never lost a battle, he chose to attack rather than retreat. The human fleet looked impressive, but appearances could be deceiving. Surely these mammals could not match the military might of the Zephyrian collective. All ships advance to attack formation, Veltar commanded. We will show these primitives the power of a 1,000-year empire. The Zephyrian fleet moved forward, their biomechanical ships pulsing with organic energy. They had conquered dozens of species with these same vessels. Their living hulls could adapt to damage, and their weapons could adjust to enemy defenses. They were the products of centuries of genetic engineering and technological advancement, but they had never faced humans in real combat. Admiral Grace. Patterson watched the alien fleet approach from the bridge of her flagship, the Sovereign. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her eyes were hard as steel. She had studied every battle report from the colony wars, learned every lesson that human blood had paid for. Today she would use that knowledge. All ships weapons free, she commanded. Target their lead elements. Let them see what human gunnery looks like. The first ship to fire was the UES Ragnarok, a siege dreadnought built to crack fortified asteroids during the mining wars. Captain Marcus Webb had been waiting his entire career for this moment. His ship's main batteries charged with power that could be seen across space. Target acquired, his weapons officer reported. Zephyrian battleship, range 2 million kilometers. Fire, Marcus ordered. The Ragnarok's main guns spoke with the voice of contained stars. 6 beams of pure energy crossed space in the blink of an eye and struck the lead Zephyrian battleship. The alien vessel's adaptive armor tried to adjust, tried to absorb the impact, but the energy was too great and too focused. The battleship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a massive living thing bristling with weapons and armor. The next moment there was only expanding plasma and debris. The ship had been vaporized so completely that its atoms scattered across 3 light seconds of space. The Zephyrian fleet stopped advancing. On 1,000 ships, sensor operators stared at their displays in shock. Their lead battleship, one of the most powerful vessels in their fleet, had been destroyed by a single shot from a human weapon they had never seen before. Impossible, Veltar whispered. Our armor is adaptive. Our hulls are self-repairing. How did they destroy us so completely? His science officer was studying the energy readings with trembling hands. Sir, that weapon output was beyond anything in our database. The energy levels were equivalent to a small star, but the humans were not finished. All along their battle line, massive ships were charging their weapons. The Heritage fleet had been built during humanity's darkest hour, when survival meant building the most powerful weapons possible. These ships carried technology that made current human vessels look like toys. Bob Turner commanded his destroyer squadron as it moved to engage the alien cruisers. His ships were small compared to the massive dreadnoughts, but they were fast and deadly. During the colony wars, destroyers like his had been called cruiser killers because they specialized in hunting larger ships. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Bob ordered. Hit them fast and hard. The 6 destroyers spread out and accelerated toward the Zephyrian formation. Their hulls were dark as space itself, making them hard to target. Their weapons were designed for precision strikes against enemy weak points. They moved like sharks attacking a school of fish. The Zephyrians tried to respond, but their weapons could not track the fast-moving human ships. The destroyers darted between the alien vessels, firing precisely aimed shots at engine compartments and weapon systems. One by one, the Zephyrian cruisers began to lose power and drift helplessly in space. Target neutralized, Bob reported as another alien ship went dark. Moving to next contact. Tony Garcia brought his heavy cruiser into range of the alien battle line and opened fire with every weapon he had. His ship had been disguised as a space station for decades, but underneath that disguise was a warship designed to fight entire fleets single-handed. His guns fired continuously, each shot precisely aimed and devastatingly effective. The Zephyrian bioships tried to adapt to his weapons, but human technology was too different from anything they had faced before. Their living armor could adjust to energy weapons and kinetic rounds, but the humans were using exotic matter streams and quantum disruption fields. The alien hulls simply could not evolve fast enough. Steve Miller dove his fighter through the Zephyrian formation, dodging return fire and striking at enemy weak points. His squadron had been trained to fight like ancient Earth fighter pilots, using speed and surprise to overcome larger opponents. The alien ships were powerful, but they were also slow and predictable. "Fighter Command, this is Miller," he reported. "Enemy point defense is minimal. Their ships are not designed to fight small, fast targets." "Understood," came the reply. "All fighters switch to attack pattern, Charlie. Go for their weapon systems." Thousands of human fighters swarmed around the alien ships like angry insects. They were too small and fast for the Zephyrian gunners to hit, but their weapons were powerful enough to damage critical systems. One by one, the alien ships began to lose their ability to fight back. The UES Devastator entered the battle like a moving mountain. The massive ship's presence could be felt across space as its gravity field distorted nearby objects. Its main guns were so large that they had their own targeting systems and crew compartments. When they fired, space itself seemed to bend around the energy beams. Captain Linda Hayes commanded the Devastator with calm precision. Her ship was too large to maneuver quickly, but it did not need to. It was a fortress that could absorb any amount of enemy fire and return it tenfold. When alien weapons struck its armor, they barely left scratches. "All batteries, continuous fire," Linda ordered. "Show them what a real dreadnought can do." The Devastator's guns fired in sequence, each shot powerful enough to destroy a city. The Zephyrian ships in front of it were reduced to scrap metal and burning gases. Their adaptive armor was useless against weapons that delivered more energy than they could possibly absorb. Danny Wright's battlecruiser. Thunderbolt engaged a formation of alien heavy cruisers and demolished them in minutes. His ship had been built to fight multiple opponents at once, using speed and firepower to overwhelm enemy defenses. The Zephyrians had never faced anything like it. "Target destroyed," his weapons officer reported for the 5th time. "Moving to engage next formation." "Good shooting," Danny replied. "Keep it up." All across the battlefield, the story was the same. Human ships were systematically destroying their alien opponents with weapons and tactics that the Zephyrians could not counter. The Heritage Fleet was proving that 3 centuries of careful preparation had been worth it. Commander Veltar watched his fleet being torn apart and finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. These were not primitive humans with outdated technology. These were the descendants of warriors who had fought the most brutal civil war in galactic history. They had learned to build ships that could survive anything and weapons that could destroy everything. "All ships retreat," he ordered. Emergency withdrawal to jump point, but it was too late. The human fleet had positioned itself perfectly, cutting off all escape routes. The Zephyrians were trapped in a killing ground of humanity's choosing, and there would be no mercy for those who had threatened Earth. The battle lasted 6 hours and changed the galaxy forever. When it ended, the Zephyrian collective's mighty armada of 1,000 ships was reduced to 200 heavily damaged vessels limping away from Earth space. The survivors carried with them a message that would reshape how every species in the galaxy viewed humanity. Admiral Grace Patterson stood on the bridge of the Sovereign and watched the last Zephyrian ships disappear into hyperspace. Around her, the Heritage Fleet maintained perfect formation despite the intense combat they had just experienced. Not a single human ship had been destroyed, and only a few had suffered minor damage. Admiral, her communications officer, reported, "We are receiving surrender requests from 17 Zephyrian vessels that lost engine power." "Accept their surrender," Grace replied. "Treat the prisoners well. They will have stories to tell when they return home." The prisoners would indeed have stories. They would tell of human ships that fought like living demons, of weapons that could vaporize matter itself, and of tactics that seemed to predict every move the Zephyrians made. Most importantly, they would tell their leaders that attacking humanity had been the greatest mistake. In their species' history, Captain Tony Garcia supervised the decommissioning of his heavy cruiser as it prepared to return to its disguise as a space station. The fake commercial sections were being rebuilt, the weapon ports were being hidden, and soon it would once again look like a harmless trading post. The deception would continue. Captain, his engineering officer asked, "Will we really go back to pretending to be civilians?" Tony smiled. "That is the beauty of our strategy. The galaxy will know we have these ships, but they will not know where they are, or how many we really have. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Fear of the unknown is often more powerful than fear of the known." All across the solar system, similar preparations were taking place. Ships that had revealed themselves for battle were returning to their hidden bases and disguised positions. Mining platforms extended their fake equipment again. Research stations reopened their civilian laboratories. The Heritage Fleet was going back to sleep, but now the galaxy knew it existed. Ambassador Lisa Carter found herself busier than she had ever been in her career. Within days of the battle, her office was flooded with requests for meetings from species that had previously ignored humanity. Trade delegations arrived daily, offering deals that would have been unthinkable just a week before. "Ambassador," her assistant announced, "the Colonian Empire is requesting a defensive alliance. They are offering to share their shield technology in exchange for a mutual protection pact." Lisa reviewed the proposal with interest. The Colonians had never acknowledged human messages before the battle. Now they were practically begging for Earth's friendship. Fear, it seemed, was indeed an excellent foundation for respect. The Rigelian Trade Consortium offered exclusive mining rights to rare metal asteroids. The Andromedan Research Collective proposed joint scientific expeditions. The Centauri Defense League suggested military cooperation agreements. Every major power in the galaxy suddenly wanted to be humanity's friend. Ryan Hayes docked the Leviathan in its hidden base inside the moon and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. The ship had performed perfectly in battle, just as she had during the colony wars centuries ago. But now she would return to darkness and silence, waiting for the next time she might be needed. "Captain," his first officer said, "the crew is asking when we might see action again." "Hopefully never," Ryan replied. "These ships were built for war, but their greatest victory is preventing war from happening. If we do our job right, the galaxy will be too afraid to test us again." Admiral Pete Sullivan published the official after-action report 3 weeks later. The public version described humanity's desperate activation of mothballed vessels from their colonial period. It mentioned that the ships were old designs that had been kept in storage as a precaution against unexpected threats. Report made no mention of the fact that these heritage ships represented only humanity's older, less advanced military technology. It said nothing about the current generation of human warships that remained hidden in even deeper secrecy. The galaxy was allowed to believe that they had seen humanity's full strength. The truth was far more interesting. During the 3 centuries of peace, human military technology had not stood still. The Heritage Fleet was impressive, but it was also obsolete by current human standards. The real modern fleet remained hidden, waiting for threats that might be too great even for the old warships to handle. Dr. Maria Santos continued her work on the Heritage Project, but now with additional funding and support. The success of the fleet had proven the value of maintaining old military capabilities. Plans were already being made to build new heritage ships using modern technology, creating an even more powerful hidden force. "Doctor," her research assistant asked, "what do you think the aliens would do if they knew the truth about our current capabilities?" Maria considered the question carefully. They would probably unite against us out of pure terror. Sometimes it is better to appear strong enough to be respected, but not so strong as to be seen as an existential threat. Commander Veltar survived the battle and returned to Zephyrian space with his damaged ships and wounded pride. His report to the Collective Council was a model of military honesty and strategic assessment. The humans, he concluded, were far more dangerous than anyone had realized. Their ships fought with precision and power that exceeded our best estimates, he told the Council. Their weapons technology appears to be several generations ahead of our own. Most importantly, their tactics suggest a level of military experience that we had not anticipated. The Council voted unanimously to sign a non-aggression pact with humanity. The Zephyrian Collective, which had conquered hundreds of worlds over the centuries, formally agreed never to threaten human space again. Other aggressive species took note and made similar decisions. Jake Morrison returned to his duties as captain of the diplomatic vessel Harmony, but now his job was much easier. Where once alien species had treated human diplomats with barely concealed contempt, they now showed genuine respect and consideration. The Heritage Fleet had bought humanity a new position in galactic politics. Years later, Jake would often smile when he heard other species discuss the battle. They spoke of humanity's lucky victory with their ancient fleet. They debated whether the human ships had really been as powerful as they seemed, or if the Zephyrians had simply been unprepared, if only they knew the truth. The Heritage Fleet had been humanity's museum pieces, ships built with technology that was centuries out of date by human standards. The weapons that had so impressed the aliens were crude and primitive compared to what human engineers were capable of building now. But that truth would remain secret. Humanity would continue to present itself as a peaceful species that happened to have some very effective antiques. They would maintain their careful balance between appearing strong enough to be respected and weak enough to be trusted. The deception that had protected humanity for 3 centuries would continue. In hidden shipyards throughout human space, newer and more advanced vessels continued their patient development. The galaxy had seen humanity's past, but they had no idea what humanity's future might bring. The day humanity revealed its old warships became the day the galaxy learned to leave Earth alone. And in the secret places where humanity's real strength lay hidden, engineers and strategists continued their work, preparing for threats that had not yet emerged and building defenses against dangers that had not yet been imagined. The Heritage Fleet had done its job perfectly, not by conquering enemies, but by making conquest unnecessary. Sometimes the greatest victory was the war that never had to be fought.